Hello there. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. You are listening to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and I am Kat Hobson, your host. I did want to just, before I get started with our fantastic guest this evening, I wanted just to let y'all know I appreciate everyone who cared that we lost our dog Little this week. It was really a freaky, very upsetting thing. And so thank you for being, the people y'all are. Y'all are just amazing. And so we have a new dog because we have one that is a very reactive dog and he needs a companion. So we have a new dog and I haven't heard him bark yet. If y'all are the first to get to hear it right along with me, I'm going to apologize. But he also is a rescue. And right now I'm his person and I'm okay with that. I never mind that. So I have, we still have Tipper and now we have Wally. So y'all will be seeing them online, but I do want to let y'all know how much I appreciate your care and concern. But now I'm very excited for tonight's show. And it's not all the time that when I say I'm welcoming a friend to this show, that it's somebody I know personally who I've known pretty much almost since I've been doing my show with the regular network. And we met because he had participated in an evidence contest that I was running with my network at the time. And there were so many entries, and he blew my mind. And as we talk with him, y'all are going to find out why. Because he and his wife, Cherie, are um, Entity Voices Paranormal. They have other partners as well. But I've got to tell you, I heard the equipment. It's not even equipment. I heard the work that they're doing with a program that they're going to be using called Static Com, and you're going to trip out. These EVPs are first class. They beat the fire out of anything I've heard before, but I don't expect anything less from Tony Rathman. Tony, I'm so glad that you're here with me tonight. Thank you. Oh, I know he's there. There
Hey,
you
Kat.
are. Hey, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation and getting to explain a little bit about what the Staticom team has been working on.
Well, I'm just going to say that you blew my mind. You really did. And you always do though. I mean, your EVP work over the last almost 10 years really that we've known each other, you know, you blow me away
Thank you.
and in the very best way.
Thank you. No, I greatly appreciate that. You know, the fact that Cherie and I have been doing communication was always our specialty. You know, you've got every other device out there. You've got K2 meters, you've got FLIR cameras, you've got motion detectors, and all those devices are great, but nothing can give you the information that you can get from an audio response. And
A
that's
direct response.
right, a direct audio response.
Yes.
And that's how we got fascinated with EVPs, because there was no one else in the room. We'd put down a recorder, ask a question, and this voice would come out of nowhere and with timing and relevance, give an answer, an intelligent answer to the question asked. That blew us away. And so we've been doing that now 14 and a half years.
Yeah.
But it led us down the path into ITC, or instrumental transcommunication, which is basically up until now been radio based, either scanning with the spirit box or not scanning with DRV, but has led us down to the path of of what Staticom, what we created today, and super excited to talk about that.
Well, I'm going to tell you, you got 2 hours to talk about it, and I don't think we're going to have enough time.
there is a lot to it, including the Staticom method is literally a Frankenstein monster of components, of filtration, of all sorts of things. And one of the things people always ask us, and I'm still trying to figure out how to get it to work, is because even like StreamYard, you've got one mic input and you've got one audio output. But Staticom uses completely separate outputs, completely separate input. And when you try to combine that online, because people say, well, can you run this live online? We're still trying to work the bugs out, because it's a method that is not typical, and it creates complications when trying to run it online.
Well, that's all right, because it is swinging in person.
Thank you. And I'm glad you got the opportunity to hear it when we ran it live at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. We got some good responses from it, and we did a bunch of tests where we had both my method and Ron and Lourdes's method running, and we were given passwords when we switched between the two, and sure enough, whatever password we gave would be the first thing that would come through.
And that's what blew me away, because a lot of people say, oh, well, it's not intelligent. It's not. Well, yeah, it is. Yes, it is. And absolutely. There was I'm good. I've done this for a long time. I love EVP. I'm great with that. But I'm as good as my spirits want to be. Let me rephrase that. But I'm always so blown away when it is obviously an intelligent response, where there's no way that it can be anything, the odds of anything random like that coming across your system are slim and none when you're asking a spirit a direct question.
Correct.
And if they are a direct response. The thing with your passwords, oh my gosh, it just put a bee in my bonnet, because now I'm sitting there going, come on, Mr. Rathman, come on. I need this in my life.
There is a lot of enthusiastic support of what we've done with Staticom, and we completely understand that.
But you're the guy that's going to have it right first.
Well, that's one of the biggest problems, is the research isn't done, and we created this solely for research, and it has performed phenomenally. And we've put out, different social media clips of what we've captured. We've done it live. We've done it at Paracons. We've done what we call TDSI, or the Digital Seance Initiative, where groups of people are invited to hear it live, ask their own questions, get their own responses. And that has created quite the excitement level amongst both the paranormal community and, believe it or not, the scientific community.
Yes.
And I'll get into that more. I don't want to get too far off topic, but the interest is there, and we know the paranormal community wants to use it to be able to replicate the same results that we get. And one day that will be possible. We're just not sure when that day will be yet.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I've always admired about you tremendously, we have a mutual friend, and we don't get to see each other. I travel with the mutual friend, and he was telling me about Staticom, and y'all used it at the West Hollywood Shootout Museum place, and he was astounded. He really was. And and we're talking about Rick McCollum, and Rick McCollum has been around the paranormal forever. And he's very good at it. He is very good at getting responses.
Very
but when you blow him out of the water,
good.
that's really something. And when you did that, I was so surprised, not because you were able to, because I know who we were talking about, but the spirits would do that, period. Okay. That was something that I get stuff. In fact, I accidentally uploaded it earlier. I'm glad those things dropped, but I have one where I asked if everyone in an emergency room environment I was in had died of heart attacks. And an old man said, "No, they shot me." So
Wow.
yeah, and I couldn't go back. They're tearing it down. It's the hospital I was born in.
Oh, wow.
And it's coming down because it's been derelict. And a lot of homeless people are sleeping in there, and a lot of bad things happen there.
Sure.
So they're closing it and tearing it down. Obviously closing it, but tearing it down.
Right.
And hopefully something more brilliant and even of greater use to the community will be put back in its place.
Yeah.
But that was the first place that I caught my first, shadow that melted down the wall and went under a door.
Wow.
It was really astounding to me, that whole experience. But the whole direct response that you get, I mean, it's crazy. And when we were doing the Staticom experiment at the bash, there were random people in there. You had no way of knowing who was going to be coming and going, because people did come and go. And, I just sat over in the corner going, holy wow. Holy wow. It was really cool. But your work has always done that. I've always been surprised and blown away.
Thank you.
Surprised, but
I really appreciate that. But for somebody who may be watching who's not familiar with Staticom, let me give you a little background on what it is. So there were three main types of devices that you could supposedly communicate with spirits. First one's a digital recorder, which we all know is EVP, or electronic voice.
And it's pretty phenomenal in its own right. Sorry.
It absolutely is, because that understanding that, there's no one in the room creating vocal sound waves to have that recorder catch. You're with a small group or by yourself that is not speaking. You ask a question and this response shows up in a different voice. That's the unusual aspect of where did that voice come from. The second one was a method brought to light by a gentleman named Friedrich Jurgensen. And this was back in the 50s. And EVP had been captured elsewhere by a couple of monks doing Gregorian chants on a single wire recorder. They got some voices during that process. But Friedrich Jurgensen went out and was recording bird songs. And when he listened back to the recording, he heard first a man's voice, and then he heard another voice, and that voice called him Friedel, which was his mother's nickname for him when he was growing up. So he recognized the voice as his mother. And that's sort of how EVP began. He was the first one to really pronounce it worldwide and what he was doing, what he was capturing. But then he moved into ITC and used a barren radio frequency to get communication. And that was called direct radio voice. And of course, people like Marcello Bacci, Konstantin Radeve, all jumped on the bandwagon, performed their own tests, got their own evidence, showed that it worked. And then the third one was the Spirit Box or Frank's Box by
Right.
well-known developer Frank Sumption. Now, they all work. The only problem that we saw with Spirit Boxes, Cherie and I having built them for 12 years, although we stopped when we discovered Staticom, but that the theory behind a spirit box was that spirits would manipulate the fragments of sound that are coming through the scanning radio and create their own sentences. But through our research, what we determined was they're not using the radio at all or the fragments of sound. The only time that they would be able to communicate was in the white noise. And when a radio station hit, that communication got cut off, which we believe is the reason why spirit box answers are so short, why they're not full sentences. Well, Ron and Lourdes did a fantastic thing because there's 4 members of Staticom. Ron Iacovetti, Lourdes Gonzalez, myself, and Cherie, my wife. Ron and Lourdes did all the research to go back through history and find out what spirit communication appeared to work the best. And that was direct radio voice. Direct radio voice sat on a vacant signal. It still used a radio, but sat on a vacant station, no communication. Both Friedrich Jürgensen, Konstantin Radeve, and Marcello Bacci, who's well known for this, did it for about 40 years and was tested in lab by scientists. They couldn't debunk it. They could not figure out how it was occurring. They went back, took that method, and brought it back.
Question.
Sure.
Clarification. So they were basically just using a radio that was off network.
Well,
it was between stations.
It just was not dialed into a station.
Okay.
So basically white noise.
Yes.
Is all it was. They were able to get communication, especially Marcello Bacci. He did it publicly. He'd do it for groups, parents who lost children looking for comfort or grief relievement, and it worked out very, very well for him. Science finally tested him, and like I said, they couldn't disprove what was happening. So Ron and Lourdes brought that method back and brought it into the 21st century. And when Cherie and I saw it on an investigation with them, we're like, oh my God, this is incredible. Can we work with you guys and see how we can improve it? They luckily agreed. And from DRV, which was direct radio voice, we developed Staticom. What we did was, we removed the radio. Any scientist, any skeptic, the first cut against ITC is that you're using a radio. You're claiming to get communication from a device that is made to pull radio waves and turn it into speech. So yes. they wouldn't take it as being a legitimate form of communication. So we removed the radio. We realized we could use just white noise from a variety of tests we did. Ron and Lourdes in a zinc mine where radio waves were too far down to get. Me applying a sleep machine that had white noise at a live Paracon. I got a response. And then I went out, I tested fans, air conditioners, running water, and taped mics to my car to record white noise sounds. I could pull voices from all of
them. Wow. I mean, seriously, wow. Because I was just sitting here thinking, I do not let my kids, I hope none of my kids are listening to this, but my children have always used noise generators, noise machines with their babies in their rooms. So I have one at my house. And I normally don't do just the white noise, right? But I had one that would not go to sleep. He was being so overstimulated. So I put it just white noise. And I was hearing voices. And I was like, oh, we can't do this in here. There's a baby in here. So, I went back to the Babbling Brook or whatever. And, but that was before this because that baby is 8.
Oh, okay.
So, this was something that I didn't really think I should be taking this, you know, sound machine on investigations with me, but I should be taking the sound machine on investigations with me, right?
Absolutely.
Holy
And,
wow.
and anybody in the medical field is going to tell any person who comes in and says, hey, I turned my fan on, I'm hearing voices. They're going to tell them you're suffering from miracle ear syndrome or schizophrenia or any other variety of medical conditions.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't believe that to be true anymore.
No.
And the reason being is because of the research. When we took away the radio and we added a pure white noise generator, which cannot pick up radio, satellite, walkie-talkie, baby monitors, nothing. No signal floating around you today can be picked up. White noise also has no audio data whatsoever. No sentences, no words, not even syllables, nothing. It does not exist in white noise. For us to be able to get the intelligent responses we get with timing and relevance to the question asked shouldn't be occurring, but it does. It does.
And I don't, last I checked, you were pretty clean as far as your mental health goes. So,
yeah, as far as I know, it's still on track. So that's a plus.
Well, that's so. I just can't believe that such is the case, right?
Right.
That okay.
It still blows our mind today. In fact, we were in Gettysburg twice over the last
Yes, you went
4
to
weeks. We were there for the bash, then we went back again for the Paranormal Symposium, which we also spoke about Staticom and the philosophy behind it, which is analytic idealism. And we weigh heavily on that because it explains what's happening with Staticom. It gives us the shortest path between the question and the answer without diverting the conversation in various paths that confuse it. And it works very nicely. But basically the main philosophy behind it is that the ontological primitive within reality is consciousness, meaning that it is the one thing that is, will be, and survives. And in order for us to be getting communication with something with timing, relevance, and intelligent that is not in front of us, has to be a form of consciousness to be able to make that happen. We are not broadcasting our voice, so it's not like it's being sent into radio waves or satellite waves. My voice is speaking just as it's speaking now without the microphone, which would put a limitation on it about 30, 40 feet where the air would dissipate it. So how are they hearing me? How are they responding? Those are all the questions the research is still continuing down. We do have some answers. In fact, one of the clips tonight answers when I asked, flat out asked, how do you hear me speak? You will hear that answer tonight.
Yes. And because I can't read the labels on those, but I'm hoping that Carl can. We will get those as you ask for them. But that's something else that, I mean, one of my primary questions when I was in that room with you and Ron and Lawrence and Cherie, I was just kind of sitting there looking at all these people that were popping the questions out, and there were answers coming through, and they do love Lourdes, though.
Yes, they do.
They do. Who wouldn't, though?
Right.
But
exactly.
Something that was just blowing my mind, because I'm like, this is coming. We're in the wilds of Pennsylvania. Okay. We're in Gettysburg. There's nothing in that area, really. There's thousands of spirits around the graveyard, the battlefield.
Right.
But that wasn't who was coming through.
No, and it was based on what the people in the audience were asking.
Absolutely. They were getting direct responses from people that were nowhere near.
Correct. And that
And
one thing to be very well known about is that we will never consider a place haunted based on getting vocal responses. The reason we don't do that is because we can turn Staticom on anywhere. It does not matter. It doesn't matter time of day, doesn't matter seasonally, it doesn't matter moon, sun, nothing. If we turn it on, we will get responses. So you can't classify a location haunted if you're getting voices, because those voices don't have to be in that location. And the reason we weren't getting responses from, say, battlefield victims was because nobody was really asking those questions. They were all asking more personalized questions. And that happens when we do public demonstrations or the Digital Seance Initiative. It's amazing how many personalized questions. What was my grandfather's name? What was, because to them, that's the most, that's the hardest impacting response, to show them that, hey, this is doing something that's not normal. When they get an answer and go, oh my gosh, that they said it, that's correct.
Yeah. And, that was something that is very moving to see people react to that. And
absolutely it is.
When I was asking about my dad, the reason that I went with him was because a medium who I was interviewing, to see if she was comfortable enough with me to come on and do a show, because she's very private. But when we were talking, she was like, oh, and Gordon's, we went through which dog was here. It was crazy. And she was like, well, Gordon's here. I said, and all I ever do is I know Gordon, or I know whatever. And she was like, and he's always with you. I said, well, then why doesn't he let me know? She said, because you don't ask. And I said, well, okay. And that's why I brought that up when we were at Gettysburg. And he wasn't there. He didn't respond. And I do think that's because there were other people who had a greater need, and he would have stepped back to allow that to happen.
Yeah,
that's just who he was.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. And the other question you have to ask yourself, Kat, is, had he responded clearly, without any doubt of who was responding to you, how would you have been able to handle it? Because we've had lots of people come to us and say, I don't know how I would react. And I can tell you that if they have any suspicion that you will react in a non-positive manner, they won't do it.
He knows better.
Okay.
Because we talk here.
Oh, okay.
So ever since she told me that, because I'm like, well, what am I doing? This is what I do. And he knew this is what I do. And so when Heather said, you have a lot of dogs around you, I said, well, yeah, I do. And she was like, because I hear them, and she was like, well, your dad's here. And I was like, yeah. And well, she said names. She didn't use relationships. So there were several family members here who were all relevant to a central one of them. And so that was not unexpected. All of the ones who were here was kind of unexpected. But if he had come through in Gettysburg, I would not have had a problem with that. I would have just been like, coolio, Dad, So, but there were a lot of people who were very surprised. I do get what you're saying, because there were a lot of people that were very surprised, and they were cool with them coming out with, y'all's names, but they were not quite as comfortable when it became personal.
Yeah, and that's the eye opener. That, oh my gosh, this is This is information that is responding to the questions asked. This isn't radio. This isn't radio broadcast, because cannot pick up. It's a closed circuit system, sends white noise through some filtration and out to the speaker. It is literally that simple from a method standpoint, not from a philosophical standpoint, but from a method standpoint. That's all the technology involved. It's white noise input, it's filtered, and out come the answers. But when you've got audience that is used to spirit boxes, which can be difficult to hear. Sometimes they give very clear responses, but they're shortened. They're a word or two, 3 maybe if you're lucky. Staticom will spit out full sentences without white noise background. The only obstructing factor in Staticom is other spirits speaking. Sorry, I'm beeping. So you'll hear voices talking to each other, which is really fascinating when you think about it, because there's times we can turn it on, not ask a question at all, just listen to what they're talking about. But sometimes you'll have that background chatter. When you ask a question and they want to respond, the response that comes in usually overpowers every other response or talking that you hear through Staticom. It's like it's directed towards the machine, and it's usually much louder than any of the other conversations.
When you have that happen, when they're chattering amongst themselves, do you feel like, I'm struggling with how to ask this, like the greater consciousness, okay? The level that we achieve after we pass. Because I don't think that we're just earthbound spirits. I think that the collective consciousness is a thing. And do you think that is why when somebody is asking for a particular individual, they can come forward? I mean, it seems very random that they would just be, oh, well, I'm just going to be vacationing in Tokyo this week, but if you hear my name, just let me know. I mean, that's not, that can't be what it is.
Well, let me go into the philosophy of analytic idealism, because everything that we believe Staticom can do is based on the theory of analytic idealism. Like I said before, analytic idealism says that consciousness is the ontological primitive, meaning it is the one thing that was here prior, will be here after, and continues on.
Right.
Now, analytic idealism also states that there is a universal consciousness of which all spirits are part of. It's the universal one mind. When we are in human form, we are basically pieces broken off from that one mind, and we then have our own sort of self-agency to run our life, to figure out what decisions we want to make. That analytic idealism philosophy also says then that after death, that individual consciousness goes back to universal consciousness.
Yes.
And shares everything learned, everything understood, everything gained from that life back to universal consciousness. In fact, even while living, that information gets transferred back to universal consciousness. So now, under that philosophy, and really trying to understand how some of the paranormal, what we call paranormal, works, you have to look at what you believe reality to be. And through analytic idealism, that was a shift over to that, because it supports what we're claiming to be paranormal, when in fact, it becomes the normal every day. There's nothing paranormal about it. It is just the normal that science can't explain yet.
Well, or they can't prove.
Can't prove.
I mean,
Correct.
the explanations are there, and I would argue that such experimentation as you're doing is something that can bring that information forward
It is.
to a level of proof.
Well, it is. In order for us to really be receiving answers without broadcasting our voice or having any incoming broadcast signal, there's no way for a voice through the transmissions that we know of today to even come in. Yet to have it happen without any antennas, any transmission, makes it even stranger. But if consciousness and physicalism or physical science believes that if the human body dies, consciousness dies, well, then who's answering our questions? There has to be something. So one of the complications in doing a project or research within the scientific, and things have expanded, doors have opened, minds have opened, scientists are more open, but we bump up against two of the biggest structural developments today. One is science. Science says, nope, body dies, consciousness dies. There is no afterlife. Well, somebody's answering our question.
Science says that until that individual scientist has the experience.
Well, true.
And that does create a mind change.
Well, it literally, science has what's called the hard problem of consciousness. Science says that we have a 3D world out there made up of physical objects, and that world exists without us.
Yes.
They say that consciousness can evolve in the body because of the electrical impulses, the what the body's made up of. Oh, wait, hold on right there. If the human body can create consciousness and is made up of the same materials everything else in the world is, which you say doesn't have consciousness, then how does the body have consciousness? If it's the same atoms, same electrons, that makes up a rock or a tree or everything else. That is the hard problem of consciousness. Science hasn't been able to figure that out.
Well, and a lot of people are of the impression that trees and other things that are connected through a root system like Joshua trees, that there is a consciousness. It is a collective consciousness.
Completely agree. There are a lot of theories out there today. I'm speaking to just physical science.
Gotcha.
With what I was saying. Are there other theories? Absolutely. There's quantum theories, there's quantum physics theories, there's all sorts of them. So I'm speaking just to physicalism or physical science.
Well, I was just, because I find that fascinating. I really do. When I was, the very first time I was ever exposed to some of this outside of my reading, when I met people that were living and promoting this idea, this notion, this theory, which I don't think it's just theory, but was at an event in California, and it was my very first contact in the desert, and I ran across people who were espousing this, and I already believed it, but I didn't know anybody here that was, I live in a very medicine-based community, and a lot of research goes on here. A lot of, that's our basic industry in the state now that we don't do steel anymore. So it's medical research or us kind of a thing. And so when I was listening to people, and a lot of this was all, it's a very broad event, primarily aliens, primarily alien contact, but consciousness contact as well, because alien life forms, however you want to phrase that, do communicate through, kind of transcendentalism. They are perfectly capable of reaching out to your mind, period. And that's sometimes where some of my thought processes come from with how I view your work.
Well,
So,
if you look at anyone who's claimed to have had an encounter with extraterrestrials,
mhm.
they'll say, I could hear them speaking, but their mouth wasn't moving. So if that's true, they were doing it through another means. But people always ask us too, have you gotten any extraterrestrial communication through Staticom? And we're going to absolutely say no. And here's the reason why we would say that.
Okay.
Is because there is such a disconnect between what would be the life, the understanding, the environmental circumstances of a being not on Earth. Now, there's variables within there too. You could say, well, what we're calling extraterrestrial may actually have lived here. I don't want to go that far into variables. But it's no different.
I mean, I want to stay with what you're getting. So,
right. But it's no different than taking the sounds a dolphin makes and trying to translate that into English. Can't be done. Why? Because we don't have a knowledge base to translate. You can translate
there's no primer for that.
Correct. You can translate any other language, Chinese, Spanish, any language can be translated from one language to the other. But that's because the objects being spoken about are the same, whether it's rock, tree. There's a comparison for it to allow translation. You would not have that with an extraterrestrial. So when people ask us, have you gotten extraterrestrial communication? We believe we're speaking with disembodied consciousness.
I just think that's so, I love this topic and I blame you. It's all your fault.
Of course. That's okay. I'm okay with that.
I know, right? But it really is something that like I said, the white noise machines, it was a long time. I had been home and was sitting down. I was babysitting somebody and I turned down their sound machine and I was like, wait a minute. I have to talk to Tony about this because this is going to be so very similar in notion. Okay. The concept. And so it really did blow my mind.
Thank you.
It really did.
It did ours too. I mean, we are still being blown away. In fact, I can't go into detail on it, but we ran, when we were at the symposium Saturday night, we ran a Staticom session, and what we had come through just blew all of our mind, including the people that were in there. I can't go into more information on it now. It was just, it was mind blowing. It really.
Well, I'm calling you later, right?
Sure.
Because I'm very enthused about this project. I am so enthused about this project. I am so fascinated because there's an awful lot of people in our collective consciousness. Okay. You have Einstein.
Yep.
You have Tesla.
Yep.
Have you tried to get Tesla to answer you?
I don't remember getting Tesla, but we've had Marcello Bacci. Well, let me rephrase that. We believe we've gotten, because there's no 100% proof.
Right.
We can say who they said they were.
Right.
But we can't prove it. But based on them saying it, we've had Marcello Bacci, we've had Jurgensen, we've had Thomas Edison. There's one more that Ron got. I can't remember off the top of my head who it was. But even giving direction, and one of the clips I think I'm going to play tonight, you're going to hear a gentleman who claims to be Marcello Bacci, and you'll be able to hear the information he gave. Part of it anyway. It's just a clip.
Yes. Well, I'm so ready for this to be something that going, that the average person is going to be able to use. And it it looks complicated, but you make it sound so simple
It
because you have such a grasp.
well, we've been involved with ITC communication for years, but
Yes.
it can be frustrating. In fact, just a few hours before we came on this show tonight, I was trying once again to get it to go live because I promised some people I'd give a live demonstration. But like I said, the method is a Frankenstein monster of components, and
Yes.
it's got 2 or 3 different sound outputs and multiple inputs of where this stuff is coming from. And to put it on live, I was so frustrated. But
Yeah.
the method works well. But both Ron and I have had problems, and luckily those problems have never happened simultaneously, where the other one could talk the other one down and get them level-headed again, get it rectified. If that ever happens to us simultaneously, we're in trouble, because it is frustrating knowing what it can do, and when something's not functioning right, it's mind-boggling,
Well,
frustrating.
well, and the people that y'all are I mean, you're so science based, and if you're doing A, then B, then C should happen. We shouldn't
Right.
jump to Z, but then sometimes spirits have their own mindset
Correct.
and their own goals, and I get frustrated just when I was trying to do shows just audio by myself, right? So I was interviewing Michael Lewis and Mike Roz, and I had them on one night, and there was such talking in the background on my end. I was in the house by myself, and I was just like, "This is crazy." And they were like, "Well, we hear you." I was like, "Do you hear everybody else too?" Because everybody else does.
Right.
But so I do know that spirits are going to find a way regardless of what may be going on. And I don't even have landlines in my house, so there wasn't a lot of interference that should have been happening in this house period.
Right. Right.
But so it's just frustrating when and trying to do it under the pressure that you must feel sometimes in some of the crowds that you're presenting to. I can definitely see your frustration level jumping up.
Well, like I said,
So,
the 2 biggest organizations that we sometimes butt heads against was one, science, that I mentioned, but the other one is religion. And it doesn't matter which religion. You'll comments from when we post stuff or we do things like, "Oh, you're not talking to spirits, you're talking to demons," and the whole religious side to what they believe you're talking to, what they believe you should or should not do, and then you've got science on the other end of it. So doing a project such as this is a challenge, because you're fighting what science claims to know or don't know, and you're fighting what religion says you should or should not do. So it is a bigger challenge than just the project itself and getting something to work. It's ideas, philosophies, theories of what reality is, what life is, what you're supposed to do, not supposed to do, based on, it's a challenge.
it is. And it's really funny because well, I'll probably get, all my shows banned forever and ever, amen, by all of my friends. But I don't think that I get the whole thing about, well, you're not talking to spirits, you're talking to demons. And I'm like, well, you know, there's really ugly people
Right.
and there's really wonderful, kind people. And I don't generally get negative kind of energy when I'm getting EVPs.
Right.
I get called the B word a lot. And that's just the way that is, okay? Because if you're interacting often, sometimes you get stuff back. But
Right.
I'm always like, I'm Southern. No, that's not me. I'm so sweet. Can't you tell I'm sweet? But it does happen,
It does.
and sometimes I feel like whoever I'm interacting with is simply for shock value. Because
Could
I'm
be.
usually like, really, that's so yesterday. No, that's already been used. You're going to have to be more creative. But it really is. I didn't hear a lot of profanity when you were running the static com at all.
No, in fact, um, I would have said we've never had anything. Well, dark maybe, and like you said, you could walk out onto the street corner and ask 20 different people, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" And you're going to get the same range of responses. Some people are going to say, "Sure." You're going to ask your question, they're going to answer it. Then you're going to get other people, "Don't get away from me, don't bother me, don't talk to me." So that difference. But we've gotten that through Staticom. We've gotten spirits that are entities, consciousness that doesn't want to communicate, and you can't make them. But 2 weeks ago, I would have said we've never gotten anything demonic. That
Really?
may have changed. We still have review to do, but it was a crazy experience, and it was the one I started to say before. But again, we've got a million things to fix, to clear up, to pull the communication from, but it was not good communication. Not at all.
Well, what made you feel like it crossed the line from a negative human to an entity?
So many things. We've been asked over and over, have you ever been able, when you have communications, when you shut down the session, have you been able to pick up residual energy left? And that never happened. And the reason was that because when we communicate with them, they don't need to travel here. It's not like me going to the neighbors, having an hour conversation while at the kitchen table, and getting up and they can take body heat from the chair, which they would be able to do if I was physically sitting there an hour. If they don't have to travel to you, there is no residual energy needed.
Right.
And we believe that happens through consciousness. That room lit up with energy. I mean, it was
Really?
a little freaky. Oh yeah. And there wasn't a person in there that didn't notice it. I mean, everybody was going like this because you could see their hair on their arms standing straight up. It was crazy, but that's all I want to say about it for now.
That's okay. Well, I mean, I'm glad, I'm assuming that worked out well in the end for y'all. Y'all were okay.
Yeah, everybody, to my knowledge, is fine. But it, freaky for us because we had never experienced
That is freaky. Well, I mean, you've got to figure if you're talking to people of all ilk, all energy levels, you're going to come across the putzes too.
Correct. Right.
And they know how to travel.
Correct.
If they so choose.
Right.
So one of my friends made a valid point when I very first started investigating, and it was that moment was not the best moment for me. And I was a little shook up because it was very directed at me. And I was like, I don't even know how to cope with this. I don't know what to take, how to unpack this so that it's not a personal attack,
Right.
Verbal, not energetic. I've had energetic too. But I was just like, why would I have been a focus for that? And they said, well, probably they recognized your energy and they had a problem with you from another life or another period or something of that nature, or they were just a ticked off individual and it wasn't personal, but you personalized it, you internalized it.
Possible. Yeah.
And I thought, well, okay. So now when I get things like that and they come, I'm just kind of like, oh, well, I'm done with that. You're not bothering me. I usually just say, you're such an ass and go on. So, I mean, sometimes they are. You never know.
Very true. Very true.
But, well, I would like, Carl, can you see the titles on those clips?
Yes, I see them.
Hello. You can come in. It's okay.
Okay.
I was just asking if you could see the titles on the clips.
Yeah, I can see all the titles on the clips down here.
Okay. What would you like for us to play, Tony?
Well, considering we were talking about our good friend, Mr. Rick McCollum, that would be a good one to play, just because we were both doing a Paracon, the Tombstone Paracon.
Oh, this is from Tombstone?
What?
This is from Tombstone?
It was recorded a day or two before we were there.
Right.
But I was asking Datacom who was going to be there with me. And this is the response they gave.
I'm going to be coming down to Tombstone to talk to you using Staticom. Who's going to be with me? Who's going to be with me, Spirits? Spirits, did you say Rick? Yes. What's his full name? Can you say his full name? Spirits, if you can hear me, say Rick McCollum.
I love that they kept saying us. We're coming.
Right, and they did
and
say
then
that.
They did, and they said it after they said his name too.
But I hadn't even mentioned his last name. I heard them say Rick.
Not the first time.
I said, "What's his last name?" Clear as a bell. Rick McCollum.
Yeah. Okay, I got a question. Did you hear that word that wasn't even said on there?
People ask that all the time.
Devil.
Really? I didn't hear that one.
Beginning, after they say we, and then you hear a voice, and then it says us.
I did not pick that up.
Okay, listen to it again. I'll stop it when I hear it.
Spirits, what's my wife's name? Did you say Cherie? Spirits, I'm going to be coming down.
Right there. Right before you started talking, there was another voice in there.
I didn't catch it either, but I will go back.
I wasn't looking for it, so.
Yeah, I'll go back and listen again.
It sounded like it started with a D.
Possible. Huh? There's lots of conversation that does go on that we don't annotate, because if we did, it would take us days to literally put out a 30-second clip, because there is so much involved. It is absolutely possible, Carl, that you're hearing it. Absolutely.
Right. What we have found out doing things like that is when you listen to it after you record it like that, turn your closed caption on. The AI will pick up words and say them differently, but it'll pick up other words when it's not even talking.
Yeah.
Interesting.
True.
I would not have thought of that.
Yeah, we've used that before, and it does work. Matter of fact, the one time we did get able to run it live, even through StreamYard. The StreamYard subtitles were picking up what Staticom was saying.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
We've had it happen during the podcast. People listening in chat room turn their closed caption on, and they hear different words. They see different words come up there than what we're saying.
Yeah.
Or when we're not talking, words come up on there.
Yep.
Well, that's fun.
Oh, yeah, you need to try it. Just watch a YouTube video of a paranormal or something and put closed caption on. And
well, we've had Staticom. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Carl.
Good. That's all right. Just listen and read. Go ahead, Tony.
We've had the voices, the recordings that come through Staticom analyzed by audio engineers. And the one thing they said was they've never heard anything like the voices that come out of Staticom. They absolutely inhibit the same vocals, the same consonants, the same emotional standpoint of how humans speak.
Really?
And that coming from randomness is absolutely an impossibility. So Staticom is producing the clearest, most consistent human speech to how humans speak.
Wow.
The other thing that's important to know is we did something. Ron suggested the idea. He presented it to me. I figured out how to do it. But we slow down live white noise in real time. And that's the other thing with Staticom. Everything happens in real time. Because if you ask questions, you capture it on a recorder, you go home and review it, that conversation is over because you're at home.
Yes.
Staticom does this all in time live. Slows down live white noise. Why do we do that? Because the pioneers in EVP said spirits will speak faster than even the human mind can comprehend it, or that faster than any human can speak it. Well, we found that to be true. So Ron says, Tony, how do we slow down live white noise? I said, try this. Sure enough, we did it. It worked. We still use it today. So the voices are literally slowed down half the speed. Now, that doesn't lengthen the length of the recording. It's literally like going from 16th notes to quarter notes. It's the same amount of time. It's just slowed. But two very important
so very good at what you do. I think that's why we're friends, is because I'm just so in awe of your abilities, but B, you're a nice human. So what else do you want to play?
Well, since we were talking about it before, and to give an more understanding of what Staticom can do, I was saying before that, and Carl, the one we're looking for is called Energy of the Mind.
Got it.
But before you play it, what I wanted to know, and like I was saying before, I'm not broadcasting my voice. And there's no mic, even like there's a mic in front of me now to do this podcast. I'm literally speaking in my house at my normal tone of voice. It's not being broadcast. There's no waves being pushed out to them to hear me speak. On top of that, I'm human. So the only way I can speak is to create vocalization or sound waves within the atmosphere, which another human has ears. So if they're in range to hear it, the follicles in the ear vibrate. Those vibrations are sent to the brain. The brain interprets it as speech, and communication can happen back and forth. But if a spirit or consciousness is truly energy, and they don't have ears or follicles to catch it, how do they hear me speak? That is what I asked. This is the answer they gave.
You hear me speak.
Yep.
Wow.
So now let's take a look at that answer for a minute. Before ITC, we did EVP work. And for years, still doing it today. So 14 and a half years. But we always noticed that a lot of times the answer would show up on the recorder before we even finished asking the question.
Yes.
This explains it. It's not my vocalization of saying it that they need to hear it. They're getting it from my consciousness, which is pushing the question to the universal consciousness, which they're answering from. My vocals have nothing to do with it.
Do you know what you need to do? You need to write your questions out or something. That would be fascinating.
Already done it, and
You
it
can hold
worked.
them up to a camera.
Yep, we've done that. We've got live demonstrations of that.
I'd love to see that.
The other thing is we used to tell people during a TDSI session, if you're too embarrassed, if you want to know the answer to a question, but you're too embarrassed in front of a large group, just come stand in front of it. Don't vocalize it. Just think it. Sure enough, they got their answer.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Not surprising, but just fascinating, because you're the only person I know who would have just been willing to go to that.
Well,
And
I mean, in order to research it properly, and like I said, when you come up with something new, when it's producing results that capture people's attention, you have to make sure you researched it enough to answer the questions that are going to come at you. We knew that.
Yes.
The other thing you need to do is you need to make it attention grabbing enough that they're going to take notice of it, that they're going to want to pay attention, but without making it too great that they instantly just fall into the path of going, they're faking it. That's not real. That can't be real. This is real. We are faking nothing, and this is happening. It's that simple.
I just think that, one of the best things about this whole thing is your stellar reputation. You have been in ITC research, as you said, for 14 years.
Correct.
You have been, I can't even tell you the evidence that was submitted to me in that contest all those years ago, right? You blew everything out.
Thank you.
And there was no doubt whatsoever who won that competition, right? Because there was the mindset and the brilliance of the capture was just really amazing.
I appreciate that, Kat.
Well, it is what it is. I had nothing to do with it, but it was just really, and maybe what you're doing now is why that idiot just ran off. I mean, that was not necessarily.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be your path at that time.
Very well could be.
But I'm going to tell you, I was a believer in you at that moment when you sent that and I heard it and I was like, holy wow.
And I appreciate that. And I appreciate the compliments. The great thing about Staticom, though, is all 4 team members. Each one of us has a specific specialty, a specific talent that we bring to the team. And without all 4 of us, Staticom wouldn't be what it is today.
You all 4, you have the talent that is yours, but you all have that same level of professionalism,
correct,
and ability and curiosity and intelligence that you're bringing to this. I mean, I get that you're a team, but you're the one whose work I've known for so long. I do get that y'all are a team. And I also know that they're every bit as good at what they do as you are at what you do.
They are, and in some things better. I mean, Ron's ability to put a philosophy, because Ron always says the difference between science and philosophy is that science will tell you how something's going to behave, what its next reaction is going to be based on what's happening. But science cannot tell you what something is. And that's true. Philosophy does that. So when Ron said we have to get a philosophy to back up on top of what Staticom can do, that's when we brought forth analytic idealism, and it so far has been a complete match, which solidifies the whole process, the whole method of communication, and the theory behind how we believe it's happening.
Yes. And it's just so cool. Just so cool. But what do you want to play next, my friend?
I will let Carl choose because I don't think they are in any necessarily order. So play away.
Not. Let's see. How about I Had Cancer?
Okay.
He was curious about this one before we ever started tonight.
Right. Well,
so.
we gave up asking that question about year one of being paranormal investigators because A, it would never be answered on an EVP ever. 2, kind of seemed a little disrespectful, like, how did you die? It is a splitting of the fabric because technically, if they were truly dead, they wouldn't be able to answer. But by me asking them, how did you die? So we stopped asking that question. We'd rephrase it, say things like, okay, who was president when you passed over? Or who, but I was running it. It was working rather well that night. And my wife came up behind me and said, how'd you die? And they answered. So here's that clip.
Do you know how did you die?
Can we play that one more time, Carl?
Sure.
Do you know how did you die?
Now we've never.
Did you hear it?
Yeah, it's there. I had cancer, and it's clear enough that no one's fighting over what was said. It takes a minute to catch where it is in the clip, but once people are able to identify where it is, no one's contemplating. Well, I think he said I had camera, or it's clear what he said, and it's timing and relevance to the question asked. Cherie said, "How'd you die?" I had cancer, and it wasn't a remorse. It was an understanding that that's what caused them to transition from this life to their next. And he sounds fine with it. Like, oh, well, I had cancer, but it also shows that he's communicating. His consciousness is communicating, which means if he passed from this life, he is not dead, or he would not be able to answer my question. So that whole philosophy just keeps building. Does that then challenge science? Hey, consciousness does survive. Can we show that over and over? Yes, we can.
Yes.
And we showed that spirit, it's not that old, really, because the word cancer that people were, that they got and everything, mine has started probably the early 1900s.
Yeah.
1800s, the word cancer was never around.
Correct.
That's a great point.
It is. But if you relate to analytic idealism, which we do, that every human, all of their thoughts get transferred back to universal consciousness, there would never be an outdated word or a word not used. We played a clip a few months ago that used the word cops, and it was from the early 1800s. And like, that's not possible. They didn't use the word cops. Well, they wouldn't have to have used it. The information gets transferred back, which is the reason no consciousness would ever be left behind in knowledge, because it's constantly being updated. So words wouldn't necessarily be reflective of a time, because that consciousness would also be updated by the universal consciousness of which we're all part of.
Brilliant and valid. And, I'm loving this. I love learning, and I love this topic. So,
thank you.
Carl, what would you like to play next?
Okay, we're just going to go down the line. The next one is Chip Pandemic?
Oh, okay. So they started when we began. This is a relatively older clip, but they started using my name. I would turn it on. Hey, Tony Rathman. Hey, it's Anthony Rathman. First and last name started coming through all the time. So I wanted to know, okay, you know my name. Who am I speaking to? That's what the answer was. So here's that clip.
Did you just say Rathman? Yep. So you know who I am. Can I know who you are? Yes, sir. Thank you. Who am I speaking to?
So again,
Wow.
first and last name, were those the last earthbound names? Don't know. Don't have those answers. But they were able to answer with a human name. Chip.
Did you ever research those names?
No, the problem is I'm basing it strictly off of audio. Did I spell it right? Is there enough T's? Is there, so we've looked it up. We had a researcher look it up, but it's too vague to, was Chip half of the name? Was it
Charles or
correct? So those are the complications in doing the research on it. But I can tell you that anything we have been able to research, meaning physically look up or dig up documents, whatever the case that we've been told through Staticom, so far today, everything that we were able to research and confirm has been accurate.
That's off the chain.
Yep.
Seriously. I'm loving this.
Okay. The next one is, I'd say, glad to meet.
Oh, I love this one.
Okay, so this is who we believed was the first contact from Marcello Bacci. Marcello Bacci was the one I was explaining was actually put into a lab, scientifically tested. He was using an old vacuum tube radio, not a white noise generator. Those didn't exist back then. This was in the 50s, late 50s. So they literally pulled one vacuum tube at a time and said, okay, we're going to pull the first tube. If you still get voices, we're going to pull the second. You still get voices. The third. So they pulled the first one. He still got voices. They pulled the second one. Still got voices. The scientist said, if I pull the third one, you still get voices, I'm going to eat it. So he pulled the third one, still got voices. Marcello said, don't eat that. That's glass.
And we're going to need it later.
Yeah. But Marcello did this for 40 years. And he would invite people to his home to experience it and let them ask their own questions, which is what now we do with Staticom. We let people ask their own question to get their own responses. And believe it or not, out of everything that Staticom has been able to do, out of all the technical advancements that we have made, to see an individual get comfort from the loss of a child or a parent, be able to hear them, be able to understand that they're still alive, that is the most satisfying gratification we could have ever asked for on the planet.
Question about that. When people do get those responses and their direct responses from their loved one, are the voices their loved one's voices?
Well, as much as we can determine, yes, we've clearly heard people say, oh my God, I recognize the voice right away. The only thing we have to take into account is that we're using electronics.
Right.
We're using electronics to filter the signal. We're using electronics to broadcast the signal through the speakers. Could the actual instrumentation have an effect on the actual pronunciation of the voice coming through? To some degree, it could. Do we know that for a fact? No, but we can't dismiss something we're not 100% sure of. Yes. So because it's electronic, could it alter the voice in some way? It could. But we have had people go, oh my God, I recognize the voice immediately. That's my mom, or that was my son, or yes, we have had that happen. So the clip you're about to play is who we believe to be, and we say that with quotation marks because that's who he identified himself as, but we believe to be Marcello Bacci, who used direct radio voice prior to us developing Staticom.
Can you please try to communicate with us through this device? Who's watching?
Bacci,
That was clear. Do you want us to do the rumbling?
Bacci, are you keeping track of what we're doing?
Marcello, can you see us?
Yes.
Thank you. Marcello, you started this method. It's working. Can you please try to communicate with us?
I love that clip.
Yeah, well, you can hear the enthusiasm in his voice. Now, Marcello did not speak English. He might have. I don't know that for sure. But it wasn't his native language. But yet, when you hear that gentleman speak, you can still hear some territorial dialects or accents from Europe. You can hear that in the way he said, "I'd say glad to meet you." You can hear those there. You can also hear the emotional response to him interacting with Staticom. And you can hear the "I'd say glad to meet you." You can hear that in the voice. Those are the vocals I was saying that the audio engineers said we've never seen anything this type of pure human speech, reflecting all the consonants, the sols, the diphthongs, every part of it. And that was a very good example of it. But you can almost hear that accent, even though he's speaking English.
You could really hear it in the first part when he said Bacci.
Correct.
It almost sounded like a French accent there on it.
Yeah. You can pick that up. But that's the other great thing about audio. You can take any other device and you get something beeping, something flashing, something playing music, and it's supposed to be identifying something. But when you're dealing with vocals,
yes,
I can tell you whether it's male or female. I can tell you whether it's an adult or a child. I can tell you their emotional state. Are they happy? Are they angry? Are they upset?
Yes.
I can tell you if they've got an accent or speaking a different language, all before I even hear the response to what I asked. You can't beat that with any other paranormal equipment. You can't.
It's pretty much astounding.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Very interesting.
Was that not the biggest rush that it was Bacci?
Oh, huge.
I mean, oh my God, you're talking to Bacci.
Well, we believe so. Again, we can't 100% confirm. But the funniest part was Ron. Now they're in New Jersey. Cherie and I are in Phoenix, Arizona. So we're across the country. Ron received a message from Bacci 2 or 3 days later. And
no way.
Oh yeah. My name is in it. It was really cool. You'll have to have him play that for you someday.
I will do that.
It's awesome.
Okay, the next one is Let's Touch Tony.
All right, so this was actually a haunted location. This was the Montgomery House in North Carolina. It is a house that our paranormal counterparts, Chris Allgood, Audra Keeler, run, keep the house maintained, protected. But it's an 1820s built house, and it's still standing today. They invited us out to investigate it. Well, something happened to me that night, and I saw my first full-color, full-bodied apparition. And Chris said, "What are you staring at?" I said, "There's somebody standing on the second platform of the stairs coming down from upstairs." And he goes, "You can see that?" I said, yeah. He goes, that's Sarah. Well, later on that evening, I saw her again. We were outside, and she poked her head out the window, and I saw it. So it happened twice. Then we turned towards later in the evening, we turned Staticom on, and this is the message that jumped out of Staticom.
Can you stop talking and let spirits that are in this house answer our question? They're trying. Okay, keep going, please, because I can hear it lessen. That was a yes, it sounded like.
Okay, sorry, I was speaking about the other clip. That was the one where they literally said they were going to touch me, which was funny because somewhere in here, I freaked out because I felt something come up behind me. And they had said that just prior. And so it was really weird. But what I was explaining prior was the one that said Tony Rathman can see.
Okay. We'll see what else we got down here. Okay. We got no cops.
Do you have Tony Rathman can see?
No, I've got no cops, Roger, 300 with, and we love these tests.
Okay, maybe I didn't include it then. No big deal. Why don't you play, after I give an introduction, the no cops? This was the same house. This was the Montgomery house. All the EVPE team was there. We were all investigating together. The house was big for that age range. 2-story, 3 or 4 bedroom, kitchen, study, library. So Lourdes on our team said, what's your favorite part of the house? What room? And they answered. But the answer wasn't anything like what we were expecting because we asked about a room. And then after you play it, I'll explain why this made so much sense.
What's your favorite part of this house? What room?
Okay, so this house was on 5,000 acres out in the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
For cops to be able to get out there by horse would have taken half a day, 3/4 of a day, or longer. So when she asked, what's your favorite part of the house? No cops. Children can play, meaning the children are in no danger. There's no one else around. House has safety. It is too far of a journey to go there just to cause trouble. This was intelligent. It was given with timing and relevance to the question asked, and it makes perfect sense.
It does. That is so cool. I love that.
Yeah.
And I just looked. I did not have another clip relevant to that previous one. I'm sorry.
We have Roger and we have 300 with, and we love this test. Which one do you want?
Play the 300. So before you play it, I always ask how many spirits are with me because I want to know. I want to know how many are communicating. It determines how much background chatter there is because I can usually hear them all. So I asked, I got my answer, and I'm like, wait a minute. Did I hear that right? Did you say? And then not only did I get a response to that with intelligence, but also with a little bit of sarcasm. So go ahead and play that.
How many spirits are with us right now?
300.
300? Did you say 300?
She passed go.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, my gosh, he's making reference to Monopoly, but that was only 200. So, but anyway, but full sentence communication.
Yes.
intelligent responses to my questions I asked. How many are here? 300. Wait, did you say 300? What, is that the wrong answer? I asked him how many spirits were with me. He answered it. And then I'm questioning him. He's like, what? Is that the wrong answer? It's 300. So just that real two-way communication is something not seen anywhere else in ITC. I mean, it is
the feistiness too.
the what?
I mean, because that was a feisty individual.
Correct.
They were
Right.
there. They were doing a good time. They were giving you what you wanted.
Right.
What? What?
Yeah, exactly. But that's the
I like
beauty.
that spirit.
Okay, we have two more. We have the Roger, and we love these tests.
All right. Do we love these tests? I can't remember. Oh, yeah, I do. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead and run that.
Yes.
All right, let me hear you say Rathman.
How about now, spirits? Can you say Staticom?
You ask some questions. You can see here. Let's see if there's any difference between me asking and you asking. I'll be right back. It's not live or anything.
Now, that one was interesting, not only because they answer the questions, my wife's name, Staticom, but the last really pronounced sentence or words were stand up, which I did absolutely after that was said. Now, people say, okay, wait, does that mean they have knowledge of the future? No. I was thinking, hey, I got to stand up. I'm going to let Cherie answer questions. That information went from my consciousness to universal consciousness, and they repeated it. I know he's going to stand up.
Well, that part is very cool. I thought the whole thing of that was very cool because they were just I lost my thought. It'll come back.
It'll come back.
They use more like telepathic waves to communicate with your head.
Well, I guess that depends on whether you believe in the theory of, telepathics. Can science prove that? No, but there's definitely science doesn't technically prove anything. They just give next steps of behavior. Right. And there's no money for them to be made in it, so it's usually not focused on. But we don't believe it's necessary telepathy. We believe it is literally consciousness communicating with what it's part of, which is universal consciousness. And if every other soul or consciousness is part of universal consciousness, the second I think it, they have access to it.
Bingo.
Which completely eliminates the idea from a scientific perspective that if I'm thinking something, they have to go find the answer and then go get it, bring it back to me. They'd be operating at twice the speed of light in order to make that happen. If they don't have to do anything because it's right there and they just say it because they have access to it, that's how we believe it's occurring.
Well, let me ask you this, and I'm just out of curiosity. If this is the case, okay, that you thought, I need to stand up. I'm just going to let Cherie do this. And then, it says stand up and then up you go. Then if they can just do that, Akashic Records and all that information that's out there that we don't know how, as a rule, to tap into, why the heck aren't we doing that better? Okay. Because if everything is already out there and you're working to get people that will. I am so fascinated by this research because there's so many ways this can go, Tony.
There absolutely is, and we
I
don't
mean-
even know, we don't even know the limits of it yet. We don't.
Well, it's because there
No.
are none.
Well, we don't know, and that's what we're testing. But you're
Yeah.
right. It is unique. It is, and you're saying, how come then if that information is out there, why are we not taking
Why do we
more
not know
advantage of it?
how to?
Well,
do
the
that?
same reason that direct radio voice was publicly announced over global newspapers that this was possible, and it fell away. Nobody paid attention for 70 years. That was the last real impact of ITC. The next one was the Spirit Box, which everyone used because it was on TV.
And it's so annoying. That device is, and I'm sorry. I know, but oh my gosh, you will walk out with a migraine and
Right.
unclear evidence.
Correct.
I heard this. I
Right.
was sitting in the room with this. There is nothing but the voice.
Right.
I mean, period.
And the reason we do that, and the way we do that, is we use broadband white noise as the base layer. Now, broadband white noise is used in a process called stochastic resonance. And what it's used for is to make an undetectable signal detectable. It's used in medical devices, it's used in electronic equipment, it's used in a wide variety of things.
Okay.
But what we believe happens is, because broadband white noise is every sound the human ear can hear, every one, 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. That's the range of human hearing. When consciousness or a spirit speaks, they have a range, a subset of hertz that they're coming over on. When those overlap with the broadband white noise, their voice is stochastically resonated higher.
Okay.
But the broadband white noise does not raise. Broadband white noise has a spectral frequency of 1, meaning it's all at the same level. So it's kind of like the difference between a single bee buzzing a foot from your head or the entire hive. The entire hive gets that sound to elevate. When they speak, that sound gets elevated by the white noise of same frequencies. Then we cut the white noise off, leaving only the voice.
Well, aren't you just as brilliant as I ever thought you were? No, seriously. I mean, this is so. It sounds like it's just like when you explain it, okay? It's like this and this and this. I know there's a lot more than that for you as through the development.
Correct.
But, like I said, I have spirit boxes out the yin yang because I want the voices and because I try very hard, because going through them, oh my gosh, I do get such a headache. And when I do get something, it's clear. I mean, they don't need the static.
Right.
I get just as much evidence or more using a straight voice recorder as I do using a spirit box, and no headache.
Right.
And it's just that it doesn't have the instant gratification of because I just got a recorder that I can do the live listening with. And I don't know why I didn't have one of these 20 years ago. But, it's just, it's so right there in your face, like the one I was telling you about. No, they shot me. I mean, in the anguish and the voice and the this, that, and the other. And that to me was such a personal moment. I didn't hear it in real time.
Right.
I heard it on review and I couldn't get back in there. So that poor man thought that I would ask a question, he answered, and I left with no compassion, right?
Right. And think of
So-
the frustration for consciousness, knowing it has the ability to communicate. And people always ask us, well, what's the veil? What's the dividing factor? The dividing factor to me is the human body. Our
Yeah.
sight is limited, our hearing is limited, our sense of touch, smell, all limited. They exist outside of that, which is why technology allows us to take their frequencies and put them into the realm of what the human body can hear, can associate with, and detect. And that's what Staticom does.
Yes. And for that, I know that when it becomes available, I'm going to have it.
Rick's one spot ahead of you, Kat. He's been asking for a long time.
No, Rick is not one spot ahead of me. I will negotiate that.
When do you think it'll be available to the public?
Well, we're not 100% sure yet, and here's the reason why we don't. It is a very complicated system. Not that we don't think people could use it, but what we know we can't do is we can't be the Best Buy Geek Squad to help out 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people. There's four of us. There's no way we'd be able to do that. So if we do release it, it's going to probably be a documentation of what pieces you need, how to connect them, how to modify, adjust it, and then hopefully they'll be clear enough to be able to let you run with it. But it's not like a spirit box where the builder builds something, sells it to you, and hit the on switch. Not like that at all. So it's
not all combined into one software, is what you're saying.
No, it's a couple of components. It's a white noise generator. It's some devices to bring that white noise sound into the computer. There are multiple modes of frequency adjustment, whether that be pitch, denoising, sound, background noise disruption being taken away, cleaning the file, slowing the file down, the white noise that's going in, slowing that down 50% so that the voices that come out can be understood and you don't hear because that's if you'd be lucky.
Because
if you heard that.
There's a lot of that. There is a lot of you'll know that you have something, but I don't know how to slow that down. I don't. That's not.
So, in other words, it would be hard to do it on an outside location.
No, it's real easy. We've done it all over the place. We've done it at haunted locations. We've taken it to Paracons, given live demonstrations. It's not hard to transport it, set it back up, and do it. The hard part is getting somebody who doesn't understand how it was built, doesn't understand the components involved in making it work, for us to be able, because people would be writing back and says, hey, I paid for this. I put it together. It doesn't work. What do I do? Okay, that's really hard to do remotely. It's really hard to do and make them understand what you're asking. So those are the complications with right now with releasing it. Plus the research isn't done and we keep improving it. And we don't want to release it and then turn around a month later and go, wait a minute, now you got to upgrade all
We
of
were
this.
just kidding. This isn't the best one. This one is. Right. But, I was going to, to your point, and I know that the equipment that I'm going to mention, the developer has sketch attached to them, but it's not nearly as complicated as what you're doing. But one of my friends up at the old Paulding Jail uses a portal, the tree portal from the Huff portal. And she bought the specifications, built it herself. She tweaked it. It's amazing. I will be up there working, doing something in her kitchen or whatever. And if she has it running, then the spirits will be having a conversation with whoever's in the kitchen. And I respond to them as I mean, without even thinking about it, it's a conversation and they're participating. Weirdest thing on the planet, freaks her husband completely out, right? Because he does not like that they are communicating when he's in the kitchen working. But but it can happen that way.
Sure it can. Spirit
So
boxes do work. And the portal, one of his original
it is.
components, did work. I built it. I used it. It did work.
So
Everything
this
else
is-
after that, not so much.
Not
But
but I mean, because he really did kind of ruin himself.
Yes.
So that device is pretty cool. But it's different from what you're doing in
Oh, yeah.
so many ways. The drilling down, if you will, with what you're able to do is so much more specific. It's so much more, it's widespread, but like the whole collective consciousness is basically out there, but you're drilling down to, or able to drill down, if they choose for that individual to come forward, just because they like Bachi coming for you. Okay. You know, I would assume people that matter to me coming for me or that I matter to.
Right.
And you matter because you're carrying on his work. You're making his work a reality. So, you know, I think that I can't wait for your equipment, your programming, your ideas and creativity to be as well known.
Thank you.
People being able to use it, because I kid when I say, no, I'll just take Rick down, but I might. But it's just we're that kind of friends. I mean, he knows that if he can't outrun me, it's going to be sad.
We had some real what's the word I'm looking for? Support in what we've done with the Staticom project. And one of that support was from the original pioneers of ITC, which is Dr. Annabelle Cardoso. And she still communicates with us today,
Wow.
Endorses the work that we're doing. And she
Nice.
just contacted the Swedish Paralogical Society, who inquired if there were any new evolving structures happening within electronic instrumental transcommunication. And she said to them, I would like to submit Ron Iacovetti, Lourdes Gonzalez, Tony, and Cherie Rathman. Their work is phenomenal. So she has submitted us to the Swedish Paralogical Society for them to review what we're working on. So that's, that kind of stuff doesn't happen every day.
No, that does not. Congratulations.
Thank you. We're excited to see what transpires from it.
Well, nothing less than you deserve, I hope, because
thank you.
It's just really I brag on you all the time.
Thank
and
you.
I know that you kind of get embarrassed by that, but one of the things that I think is so special is the fact that you're taking your love, your skill set, and Ron and Lourdes and Cherie, all of you are taking what matters to you, recognizing how much it matters to people like me and every other person who's trying to do paranormal investigation in such a fashion that there's not going to be a lot of room to throw it out the window, okay, from everybody else that's hearing it. And, I also think that it's going to be so fantastic. A lot of our friends who are mediums, not psychics per se, although they do sometimes go hand in hand, but true mediums who are telling you, look, this is who is trying to get this across to you. You really need to focus on whatever,
Right.
because they're trying to help you, but you're really being stubborn here.
Yeah.
Or whatever the case may be. In my
Right.
case, I was being stubborn.
Yeah. I mean,
But
each circumstance is going to be individual, but
it is.
but our one thing was to produce something that all the low hanging fruit was taken away.
Yes.
And we challenge anybody to be able to hear it, live demonstration, understand how we believe it's functioning.
Yeah.
And if you can find a reasonable, logical explanation for how you think these voices, we'll listen, because we can't. Now, we have a theory behind what we believe is occurring. Can we prove that with 100% certainty? No, it's a theory. But the theory fits. It fits with what Staticom is able to produce, and it fits with the philosophy behind what we've created for it.
Yes. And I mean, there's always going to be naysayers.
Oh, of course. You'll
always. I mean, you could walk up with Jesus and take your pick, Buddha, and everybody's going to say, oh, no.
Right.
They don't really exist.
We've given up on trying to convince people, again, about year one of doing paranormal investigating, because there's no reason for us to do it.
Nope.
It's not my job to convince anybody of anything. All we're showing you is what we've been able to capture.
Yes.
What you do with that, that's completely up to you. You can be interested in it. You can not be interested. You can say it's BS, but I assure you, none of what you've seen tonight is BS. This happens. Yeah.
Well, I can assure people that if you don't believe it, you find out where they're doing a demonstration and take yourself down there and watch it live.
Exactly.
Because it's freaking phenomenal.
Well, my question is, have you ever used it on a virtual investigation?
Ooh.
Okay. When you say virtual investigation, define for me how you're using virtual.
Okay. How we do virtual investigations, I use my phone on StreamYard when we're investigating. I invite people on there and everything. You could have you on there with your software through my microphone hearing and see what it picks up.
Yeah, we've done it where somebody was running live and they were picking up the audio just through their mic. That we've done. And then another form that Staticom was used at was they were at a location and they played hide and seek. And all the investigators went and hid. But the person looking for them could only get direction from Staticom with headphones.
Oh, my gosh.
They found 3 of the 4 people hiding.
Oh, wow.
That's fun. I would like to do that. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, because I was asking that question. It'd be cool because, see, we have a haunted cemetery out in the middle of nowhere. There's no road sounds. The only thing you'd probably hear is a bug out there. But something like that to do virtual, because I've had mediums see stuff out there and everything. That's why I was wondering if you'd ever done anything like that.
Well, we have, in the sense, the problem would being if you're in the cemetery and we're here in Phoenix, getting Staticom, because it has multiple inputs of sound and multiple outputs of sound, getting it to run on a streaming platform that only has one mic and one output is extremely difficult. And we're still fighting that today because people are saying, I want a live demonstration. We'd love to give you one. It's not that simple. This method is more complicated than that. Doing it live with people standing in front of it, no problem. We can do that all day, 24 hours a day.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
And but if he ever gets it there, I'm going to be in that cemetery. Virtually, but I'm hoping I'm going to be able to come up for that St. Louis event that Mikey Thompson was talking about last week. We're going to see.
Because he's supposed to be here in what? 2 weeks, I think.
2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. and go
So-
out there.
But we have a new dog, so we're going to have to figure that out. Who, by the way, has been the best dog because nobody's moved a lick while they've been in here.
Good.
So
Good.
I'll take that. But I am just so I'm so glad we're friends. And B, I'm
Me too.
so really happy for you because you've worked so hard on your ITC work from
And a passion. Yeah.
it is a passion and it shows.
Thank you.
And it's something that, because before you were with Ron and Lourdes, I only knew you and Cherie. And I was so fortunate to be able to follow you and, get to know y'all as much as we have. And I feel like it's a pretty good friendship.
I agree.
So, but it's so much fun to watch your friends succeed.
You opened a door for me way back that
I didn't do it very well.
but you did it, Kat, and you gave me that opportunity, regardless of whether it got recorded or you did. None of that matters. We got to do it. I knew I liked speaking to public. I knew I liked doing radio, which is what started the whole EVPE talk show, which started the connection to Ron and Lourdes, which is what, they're all tied together. And had you not done that and everything fell apart that night, I called you and said, hey, where's the, none of this may be happening today. So
I'm glad that it is. Well, I'm glad. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that connection happened because you're good people.
Thank you.
All four of you are good people. And to be able to see the camaraderie that y'all share as friends, as well as each of you with your spouse, and to see everything that is evolving through this is just, and Dylan's part of it. I mean, it's a generational thing now with your family. And
Yes,
I do want to tell you that Paul Kershaw in chat said that when you were doing the bocce recording, that he heard broken Italian in the background.
I did see that. I saw the, and I think he's probably right.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I was hearing.
So, but I'm just glad to call you friend, and I'm glad to see how everything is coming together for you. And now you are doing your show. You're on KUNX, and tell people how they can find you.
You can find us, like Kat said, Monday nights on the UNX network. We run a show called Entity Voices Paranormal Evidence. We review evidence from other investigators, places they've gone, things that have happened. You can also find us on Facebook. You can find me under Tony Rathman. You can find us on website, entityvoices.com. You can also find it on Gonyac, which is GONYAC, paranormal.com. We both run our own sites in regards to Staticom. If you want to hear clips, they're there. Interviews we've done are there. Every bit of news and update on what's happening with Staticom, what we're doing with it, where we're going, where we can be seen. On YouTube, if you go to YouTube and just type in Staticom, you'll find the page.
Yes.
I think we've got, I don't know how many, 160 some videos up there, all clips of stuff we've captured. It can keep you fascinated for days. So
It can. I'll
Check
vouch
it out.
for that. But well, thank you. And, thank you so much. And Carl, I'm so glad that you were there tonight so that you could have this conversation too. Thank you for
Yes.
joining in.
Hey,
And
no problem. Thank you. And it was
You're
real
welcome.
nice to meet you, Tony. And this is an interesting project. I'm gonna
Thank you.
find you on Facebook and send you a friend request. And
You got it.
all this stuff, because I'm a
So-
paranormal investigator too. And
Nice.
and he's a
stuff
jam up
like
one.
this, I mean, is interesting. Very
Glad
interesting.
you like it.
Pretty astounding, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It really is.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that from both of you. We've got work to do yet, and we're doing it, so it's going to happen. We'll see where it leads. That's the exciting part.
I know. I can't wait to see it too. So, for everybody listening, thank y'all so much, because I know that y'all enjoyed Tony every bit as much as we did. And I'm so excited to be able to welcome him to Fate Mag Radio. It's one of the best feelings in the world to be able to bring a friend in to share his information with such an iconic thing. You should write an article for Fate so that we can
One was
get
submitted. It should be out in the next episode or the next publication. I just don't know when that comes out.
Well, it comes out, I believe, every other month, because I was in the more recent one, the Angels one,
Yeah, that
and
was from
then
June.
yours should be coming. Huh?
That was from June.
Yes. So you should
Okay.
be coming out pretty quickly.
So yeah, watch Fate Magazine. I will be in the next one with an article writing about Staticon.
And you can find out about that at fatemag.com. And you can subscribe. You can look at the current or past editions, not current ones, because they're not out yet. But you can look at archives there. You can order archives. You can do all things Fate. And if you have something interesting, you don't have to be quite the genius that Tony is, because I'm not, and I got published. I am, but not about what he does. But I love what I do with my investigations, which is what it's about. If you have a great investigation, if you have UFO experience, if you have whatever, submit it, because I'll tell you what, it's a great magazine, and it's been around since 1948.
Right.
And Phyllis Galdi is the editor, and she can remember every edition and what was in it. So, but I will be looking for my copies of that, and I will let you know when, because I think mine come out right as they're mailing them. So, but if you see me at an event, hit me up, because I'll probably have Tony's edition with me. So that'll be so much fun. I'm so glad that you're going to be in there. And I had forgotten that you told me that. I apologize.
No apology needed. None needed.
But anybody, go ahead and get your information together. And we're always interested in really great stories. And it's fatemag.com. And you can follow up with me. My email is in the masthead there. Just reach out. So thank you so much, Tony. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you both.
Thank you, everyone listening. Y'all go out and have a great week. And I will see you Wednesday, same cat time, same cat channel, on Paranormal Experienced. Have a great week. Good night.